Brace yourselves for a wild ride because we're about to tackle some history, NBA style. And as we all know, history may be quite dull, but the NBA is a whole different ballgame. Today, we're going to talk about the history of the NBA, including who founded it, when it occurred, and the first NBA superstars. And yeah, let me tell ya, it was a roller coaster of chaos and struggle that almost killed the NBA back then. We'll be covering some of the innovations of NBA rules that transformed the game, about the man and his colleagues who created basketball for all of us, and many more jaw-dropping stories. So buckle up and get ready to watch 76 years of glory and heartbreak, tracing the incredible journey of the NBA. Now let's hop on our time machine to go back to the days when the basketball league was in complete chaos. And you won't believe how much the average player earned back then. Stay tuned and you will be shocked by how much it is. Let's start this basketball journey by dribbling the ball from left to right and stepping back like James Harden. We're going to the early days of professional basketball and experience the chaos and unpredictability that was the National League of 1898. National League is not a big deal. It was a small-scale operation with only 6 teams near Philadelphia. And get this, player contracts were non-existent, which meant players were free to hop from team to team depending on who paid the most. And this unpredictability created a thriving market for skilled players like Joe Lapchick, a towering center from New York who played for 4 different teams in 4 different leagues in 1919 alone. And boy, did he cash in. His income skyrocketed, with some games fetching him as much as $75. Hold on a second, did you say $75? Your ears are sharp, yes, $75. To put that in perspective, the standard fee was only $1. Lapchick was like the Elon Musk of basketball at that time, taking the best financial offer regardless of which team he played for. So, while the league may have been chaotic, Lapchick was laughing all the way to the bank. The National Basketball League was also known as the NBL, and the Basketball Association of America was popularly known as the BAA. These guys were like the Captain America of basketball, and they paved the way for the NBA we all know and love today. Spoiler alert, they eventually became one big happy family, so stay tuned to know how it happened. The NBL was founded in 1937, the first league to bring together independent professional basketball teams in a structured and organized competition. They are similar to the Avengers, but instead of saving the world, they were saving basketball. The league's Midwest and East Coast teams battled it out, setting the stage for the emergence of professional basketball as a popular and lucrative sport. But then, in 1946, the villain BAA entered the game with a completely different mission: to rival the NBL and become the premier professional basketball league in the country. They were like that one kid who transferred to your school and tried to take over as the cool kid. But hey, let me tell you, the Boston Celtics, New York Knicks, and Philadelphia Warriors were some of the most successful franchises. They drew some of the top players in the league, laying the groundwork for what was to come. And what was to come, you may ask? The NBL and the BAA, 2 leagues that were battling it out like 2 stubborn goats on a narrow bridge. But as the competition intensified, it was very clear that one of them had to go. Like a reality TV show where only the fittest survive. 2 rivals put aside their differences and decided to merge. You know, like a couple in a rom-com realizing they're perfect for each other. In 1949, the NBA was more in trouble than a cat stuck in a tree. It was like they are trying to balance a house of cards during an earthquake because of its financial problem. And, drumroll please, Frank Zollner, an owner of the Fort Wayne Pistons, wasn't going to let the NBA fall apart like a cheap suit. He was the Iron Man of the Avengers, swooping in to save the day. But instead of activating the Iron Man costume, he wore a suit and tie. He was the Tony Stark that the NBA deserved. He kept the NBA financially afloat during this time. Let's just hope he didn't have to sell any organs to make it happen. The NBA experienced chaos in the 1950s. The league was losing teams faster than socks in a dryer, and fans were as scarce as a polar bear in Miami. But lo and behold, When the 1960s and 1970s arrived, everything changed for the better, and it all started with some fancy rule changes that made the game faster and more thrilling than a roller coaster ride. The introduction of the shot clock in 1954 was a game changer. Teams had to shoot within a certain amount of time, 24 seconds to be exact, and as a result, the game received a much needed kick in the pants. The league also made other changes, like widening the free throw lane and removing the jump ball after every basket. Okay, that's enough. These tweaks made the game more exciting, and fans were soon hooked like a fish on a line. Suddenly, the NBA was hotter than a jalapeno in July. Teams were coming back to the league, and new ones were popping up like daisies. The competition was fierce, and the rivalries between teams were more intense than a staring contest with a snake. Fans couldn't get enough of the action, and the league was once again a slam dunk. There were a few outstanding players in the NBA's early years who were more like the sprinkles on top of an ice cream sundae, even adding more sweetness and deliciousness to the league. In addition to enthralling spectators and establishing the groundwork for upcoming generations of NBA stars, these players brought their distinct talents and personalities to the game. George McCann, a gigantic center who played for the Minneapolis Lakers, now known as the Los Angeles Lakers, in the late 1940s and early 1950s, comes first on this list. He was a 5-time NBA All-Star, and he led the Lakers to 5 championships. McCann was a physical force to be reckoned with, and his hook shot was as deadly as a cobra. Following up is Bob Cousy, a point guard for the Boston Celtics in the 1950s and 1960s, who was renowned for his inventive passing and ball handling abilities. Cousy is a 13-time NBA All-Star, and he won 6 championships with the Celtics. Now here we are talking about championships like it was nothing. Cousy was like a magician on the court, pulling rabbits out of his hat and dazzling fans with his behind-the-back dribble. He was a fan favorite and had the Celtics opponents seeing stars. Another player regarded as one of the greatest in NBA history is Bill Russell, a center who played for the Boston Celtics in the 1950s and 1960s. Why? 12 NBA All-Stars and winning 11 championships with the Celtics? Come on! Russell was a defensive mastermind. He could block shots like a superhero deflecting bullets. We cannot forget Wilt Chamberlain, the towering center for the Philadelphia Warriors and later the Los Angeles Lakers in the 1960s and 1970s. Chamberlain's scoring ability was as impressive as a fireworks display, and he could dominate the boards like a king reigning over his kingdom. He set records that still stand today, and his 100-point game was like a unicorn sighting. And then there's the model for the NBA logo, the one and only Jerry West, the shooting guard for the Los Angeles Lakers in the 1960s and 1970s. West was like a sharpshooter on the court. His shooting ability is as deadly as ninjas throwing stars. The NBA has grown over 76 years and became a 30-team league, with 29 teams in the United States and 1 in Canada, which is the Toronto Raptors. The Boston Celtics are the most successful team in NBA history with an astounding 6-team championships, closely followed by the Los Angeles Lakers with 14 triumphs. And who can forget the powerful Chicago Bulls, who dominated the league in the 1990s and won 6 titles in just 8 years. The current champions are the San Antonio Spurs, who have won 4 championships since 1999. With each team competing for supremacy in its respective division, the NBA is an exhilarating display of athleticism and ability. There are 2 conferences in the league, each with 3 divisions of 5 teams. The divisional alignment introduced in the 2004-2005 season added even more excitement and competition to the mix. But wait, there's no NBA if there's no basketball, right? That is why we are going to be talking about the creator of this sport. You won't believe this. Meet Dr. James Naismith. He's a Canadian physical education instructor born in 1861 and grew up in the rural area where he was all about rugby and lacrosse. You know, the usual stuff that country kids get into. Fast forward to 1891, and Naismith was given the ultimate challenge, to develop a new game that would keep his students moving and grooving during the harsh winter months at the International YMCA Training School in Springfield, Massachusetts. It was similar to a game of Survivor, but instead of competing for $1 million, Naismith had to design a game that would become legendary. But contrary to popular belief, the invention of basketball wasn't a one-man show. That's right, Dr. James Naismith had some serious brain power backing him up when he created the basketball game. Naismith teamed up with some of the most innovative minds of his time to develop basketball, and boy, did they knock it out of the park. Or should we say hoop? Luther Halsey Gulick, George Weller, Will R. Johnson, Melvin Rideout, and Amos Alonzo Stagg were just few of the masterminds who contributed to the development and spread of basketball. They worked tirelessly to refine the rules and the equipment and promote the game to a wider audience. Thanks to their collaborative efforts, we now have a game that is both physically active and less punishing than some other indoor games. Looking at you, chess! So let's give it up for these brilliant minds who have made basketball possible. Without them, we wouldn't have the electrifying moments and jaw-dropping feats of athleticism that we witness on the court today. This has been Heroes of the Courtside, your stop for the NBA's most obscure yet fascinating stories. Thank you for watching.